My lesson plan for this morning is to really show you how public service media can be an incredible ally in building a coherent system of early care and education at both the federal, the state, and the local levels. And while in my talk today, I'm going to focus in a lot on literacy, as John mentioned, we also have incredible programming in the STEM area, as well as social emotional learning. And many of our literacy programs really include a socio-emotional component to them. What we advocate for is not children passively watching television. But what we are really trying to do is to use public service media on air, online, and on our community engagement activities as a tool to really promote good language development skills and cognitive development and socio-emotional skills. And why I am such a true believer in this is that I believe that we have the content that can engage, motivate, and inspire all children, but particularly children who have been underrepresented and underserved. Not only that, what I'm going to show you today is that we put together programs on air, online, and in the ground, which have a very strong formative research component to it, as well as a summative research component. Now let's start and talk about the world of public service media in terms of where early childhood education is today. In many ways, it is the worst of times. Because of our bad economy, more and more children are being born into poverty. There are larger gaps now in terms of kids' social, emotional, cognitive development when they show up to kindergarten. And I could tell you I've been looking at some state data, and some states sort of measure these things, and the gaps are getting larger, and it's particularly true in Ohio, where the economy is so bad. And of course, many of our underserved children are resource poor and are also likely to remain in poverty. Now, a report just came out this week about California, and I don't know how many of you have seen the data, but for me, it's very depressing. And I will tell you, I have a vested interest in California education because I have grandchildren here. And the fact is that when you can compare California to other states over a 10-year period, while other states, like Ohio, have increased their graduation rate, California's graduation rate went down 5 points, or approximately 5 points. And that means we're going to continue this. California has more and more kids dropping out of high school, not being able to get jobs to sustain a family, and more kids will be born into poverty. However, these are also very difficult times at the state level. Let's see, best of times, okay. Oops. How did I do this? I always have trouble clicking and talking at the same time. And when you look nationally at what's going on in the federal government, I got to tell you, it's unclear to me what the federal government's investment and commitment is right now in early care and education. I was totally disappointed that we lost $1 billion in our Early Childhood Challenge Grant Fund. And also, when you look at this at the federal level and at the state level, you see an incredible mess. A disarray of policies, an unconnected set of programs and resources in a variety of different agencies, and a lack of coherence in state and federal policy. We also never pay enough attention to transitions. Now, for those of you who are early childhood educators, you know the importance of going from infant and toddler programs and the transitional issues there, from preschool programs to kindergarten, and from kindergarten to primary settings. But I would also argue that these are, in some sense, the best of times. Because we know from research that instructional design matters. When you expose children to books and print, when you give them high-quality language experiences, when you differentiate teaching to meet their needs, when you train the teacher and the child care provider, we can make an incredible difference. And in the Head Start reauthorization of 2 years ago, they really require now all states to develop a coherent system of early care and education, and they require the different agencies at the state level to come together, to work together to make this happen. I am advocating across the country that public service digital media that serves the same public as public education have a seat at this table, because I am a true believer that we can, in fact, be the disruptive technology to change a system of early care and education, make it more effective, make it more efficient, and we can, in fact, shape the future. So what do we want for the future? What we want is that they are all our children, and we want all children to be socially, emotionally, physically, and intellectually ready for school. But we also want school to be ready for all children. We want families to recognize that they are their children's primary teachers, and that they can, in fact, use public service media online, on air, and in the community to interact and make a difference with their children. We want, oops. Okay. We want all communities to recognize and meet the needs of young children, to be family-centered, to be a country that has better family-oriented policies than presently the case. And we want federal, state, and local policies to make for family-friendly workplaces and to advocate for services for all children, because they are all our children, and that we think in public service media we could help actualize this vision, and that's what I want to show you today. We advocate a new day for learning. Milton and I were on a task force together where we talked about a new day for learning. And what we're talking about there is a 360-degree curriculum, learning anytime, anywhere, any place. And that means when the child gets up in the morning, where they could watch programs on air, they can go to their schools and get some reinforcement in terms of what curriculum materials would to enhance their curriculum in schools. And they could go back in the afternoon in after-school programs, because we've developed a lot of curriculum on the web and online. And they could be engaged in their community in terms of we have media materials in libraries, in zoos, in museums, in supermarket activities, and we have summer camps. We want to integrate public service media into a system of high-quality early care and education. We want to be part of high-quality settings, or childhood settings. We want to be part of workforce development for early care providers and preschool teachers. We want to be at the table with regard to governance, accountability. We want to advocate for strong funding. We want to really develop the art of family engagement and involvement. We have incredible evaluation, and we want to teach people how to use this evaluation results to advocate for results and funding, and we want to make sure that we all link and coordinate together. So with regard to high-quality settings, one of the things we've done is that we funded 6 states, including California, to align early care and childhood standards that are promulgated by the state, to resources in an early care and education system in terms of our assets in public service media. And states have developed websites at their stations, which are also linked to the Department of Education, where people can go and click and see their state standards, our media resources on air and online and in the community, linked to state standards, and resources available. Thank you. So you can go to these states' websites and see that. We also, again, have on all of these states, about 4 or 5 of them, representatives of and advocates of public service media on the Governor's Early Care and Education Council. And we are connected to early care and education quality initiatives. So, for example, we have developed courses, like PBS Teachers Online courses, 3 of them, with regard to teaching teachers how to use our assets and in their classrooms or in their child care centers. And that these courses in some states are certified and can be applied to license requirements, both for the licensing of the daycare center or for individual license and certification for the child care provider. In Maryland, we have an incredible, by the way, and in Maryland, that is the highest performing state with regard to children entering kindergarten. Maryland has a terrific system. Our station in Maryland has been working for many years in developing early care and education courses online and very efficient training. And I'm trying to get to see if that we do a national distribution of these courses. And they're linked to, again, program licensing as well as individual licensing. And we're working in several states in terms of getting early care and education curriculum materials into our community colleges where daycare center people, as well as people who want careers in a public school, preschool, go for their initial training. We supplement curriculum materials now. But my goal in life, my life in public service media, is really to take very high quality preschool programming and develop programs on air, online, and on the ground around these nationally validated curricula. Right now, we develop a lot of materials. For example, the new electric company has great after-school materials and supplemental materials for teachers. And this is an example of the Super Y Classroom Adventure, which is a toolkit to supplement reading curriculum in early grades. We also have on PBS Kids Go something called, coming from our Ready to Learn research, PBS Kids Island. Now, I have 4 grandchildren from 7 months to 5.5 years. And I will tell you what I love about PBS Kids Island. There are 30 games. They are leveled. And my 5.5-year-old grandkid can play with his 3.5-year-old brother. And their mother gets a score and understands what skills they've mastered, what skills they still need to master, and what games they are playing. And this is terrific parent feedback, and the parent then could supplement experiences based upon how well these kids are doing in games. And they don't even know that they're being assessed. We also have experimented with social media, and we taught people how to tweet on Twitter. Is that right? I always mix that up. And so, for example, Grover is blue. What rhymes with blue? So as a parent is taking their child to a child care center, whether they're on a metro or a subway or a bus or riding, they can get on their cell phone a tweet, an example of something that they could ask their child. And if, in fact, the child says something right, they will get a message from Elmo saying, "That's terrific." And we also do it in Spanish. We are also working, PBS is working very closely, and so is Sesame Street and other producers, with smart technology. And we have a lot of whiteboard applications based on our programs. And I'm really hopeful that, how many of you have seen the small whiteboard tables for kids? Anybody? We're hoping that they'll be reduced from $7,000 per shot and ultimately come down. And this will be an incredible opportunity for all children to engage in interactive media and learn skills in a very fun way. Now, I will tell you, I broke down and made my husband buy an iPhone because we are grandparents, and because all of our programs now have apps for the iPhone. A little tip, I also bought the OtterBox, so if it drops and breaks, it bounces and it's good. I've used this now in the past 2 weeks. You know, my older daughter has, who's here in California, would not want her baby to watch television. However, when we were on a trip from La Jolla to LA and the baby was crying, I pulled out my PBS apps on my OtterBox, and he stopped crying and was very, very engaged for a very long period of time. Okay. And what I want to tell you again, and just to highlight some of our research, you're going to hear from SRI, who's done this research, but they put together a 10-week curriculum. It was a controlled experimental design, and on all 5 measures, when we train our child care providers, and they're using digital media in terms of videos and games, we can make an incredible difference in kids' language development skills. And you'll hear more about that study at the panel. And also they were just written up in the What Works Clearinghouse. So if you're a researcher, it comes from the Institute for Educational Studies. That's a real big deal. Second is that we did a whole host of studies from the Edinburgh School at the University of Pennsylvania on all of our programs, Super Wide, Between the Lions, Sesame Street, and when kids were viewing the programs plus playing the games, they in fact had incredible achievement games, and you could not tell the difference in scores based upon socioeconomic class. And that's really incredible. Plus, when, I lost one other study. When Susan Newman at the University of Michigan put together her World of Word curriculum using the assets from Sesame Street and tested Head Start kids, that these Head Start kids who went through this curriculum showed the same scores as kids who went through the very fancy University of Michigan public school, preschool with very high socioeconomic groups. And she showed in this research that they, in fact, were able to not only close the achievement gap, but surpass it. And we know from our social marketing research at AIR that did for us that if parents were aware of the messages of learning anytime, anywhere, any place, they increase the probability of interacting with their children on literacy activities. So social marketing does work. So what does this mean for policy? I really think that if we incorporate on-air, online, and mobile technologies into a system of early care and education very systematically, we can in fact revolutionize early care and education. I do believe that we need a lot more research. The corporation has just recently funded Sesame Street and will probably fund others on using intergenerational games. Does games between parents and children increase language development skills and other cognitive skills? And I would suspect that if crafted well, they can. Also, I think we need to create a national digital preschool digital teaching core. We need to train early care and education teachers on how to use this media, both through video, online, games, and incorporate that into their training. I'm working very hard right now with colleges and universities and our stations. The Public Service Media has 79 stations on college and university campuses. They could be a block from each other and never talk to each other. And we're starting with early care and education and seeing what they can do to help train their college professors on how to use this media and incorporate it into their class, their teaching as well. And also save money and share resources with regard to new technology. We're also, we want more research on intergenerational gaming. Now, one of the things I've learned as a grandmother using my apps is that there are an incredible number of apps, like on the iPhone or in other places, which claim they are educational. And when I, as an educator, professional educator, look at them, I say, oh my God, it sucks. And so it seems to me that there should be one place where consumers can go that would rate and have high quality standards on multiple media for young children. And I would call for that to happen in terms of judging websites, smartphone applications, and really we need to create a database so that there's one place that parents can know and go to. Also, I think, as a former researcher and academic, assessments in early care and education are very labor intensive. And sometimes the assessment is dependent upon who does it. With this new emerging technology, with videotapes and cameras, we could improve early childhood assessment for teachers and practitioners. And actually, I'm working with people who do sort of assessments, educational testing companies, AIR, to look at our digital assets and see what we can do to construct more efficient early childhood assessments that teachers can use on their iPhone. And of course, we really want to advocate for the use of public stations all over our country to do what KQED is doing today, to convene, to advocate, to explain the power of public service media online, on air, and on the ground to, in fact, revolutionize early care and education. Our children deserve a lot more than we're giving them right now.